The road not taken. The sun hung low over Austin, Texas, casting golden rays over its bustling streets. The rhythmic hum of the Tesla Cybertruck's electric motor blended with the city's ambient noise as Elon Musk navigated through the traffic. It was supposed to be a routine day filled with back-to-back meetings, including an important video conference about Tesla's latest advancements in the Cybertruck. Yet, as the tech mogul moved between skyscrapers and narrow streets, something unusual caught his eye at a busy intersection. Elon was mid-sentence, explaining the aerodynamic advantages of the Cybertruck's exoskeleton, when he glanced away from the dashboard screen. A flash of vibrant red snagged his attention. There, amidst a throng of pedestrians and parked cars, stood a young girl. Her crimson dress, stark against the gray backdrop of urban life, seemed to glow in the fading daylight. In her hands was a tin can, which she shook periodically, the metallic jingle rising above the murmurs of the crowd. "Elon, are you still with us?" came a voice through the car's speakers. He blinked, snapping his focus back to the meeting. "Yes, I'm here," he said, steering the truck forward as the light turned green. But his thoughts remained at the intersection, tangled with questions about the girl and her audience. Was she a performer? A beggar? Something about her seemed out of place, too rehearsed, too deliberate. As the meeting progressed, Elon found himself distracted, his sharp mind juggling the intricacies of Cybertruck features and the image of the girl in the red dress. By the time the call concluded, he had made a decision. Instead of heading straight to the factory, he veered off course, retracing his route to the intersection. When he arrived, the crowd had dispersed, leaving the girl alone. From this closer vantage point, her dress's imperfections became apparent. Frayed edges, faint stains, and the unmistakable signs of wear. The tin can in her hands was partially filled with coins and crumpled bills. She looked up as Elon approached, her wary eyes scanning him with a mixture of caution and resignation. "Hey there," Elon began, his tone calm but curious. "What's going on here?" Before the girl could respond, a woman's voice cut through the air. "There you are, sweetie. Great job today." Elon turned to see a middle-aged woman hurrying over, a professional-grade camera slung around her neck. Her polished appearance contrasted sharply with the girl's shabby attire. "I'm sorry if she's bothering you," the woman said with a practiced smile. "It's for a school project, a social experiment to observe public reactions to child beggars." Elon raised an eyebrow. "A school project?" "Yes," the woman replied smoothly. "Her teacher is really into hands-on learning." He glanced back at the girl, who remained silent, her gaze fixed on the ground. Something about the woman's story didn't sit right with him. "If it's just a project, why collect real money?" he asked. The woman's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she recovered. "We're donating it to local homeless charities," she said quickly. "It's part of the ethical considerations." Elon nodded, but his skepticism grew. "And which charities would those be?" "Oh, we haven't finalized the list yet," she said, her tone growing defensive. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we need to get home and start editing the videos. Homework's due tomorrow." Before Elon could press further, the woman took the girl's hand and led her away, her cheerful chatter masking an underlying tension. He watched them disappear into the crowd, the unanswered questions gnawing at him. Returning to his Cybertruck, Elon sat in silence, replaying the encounter in his mind. The polished explanation, the girl's silence, the expensive camera juxtaposed with the red dress's wear and tear, none of it added up. His instincts, honed over decades of problem-solving, told him there was more to this story. With a determined set to his jaw, Elon decided to follow them. Disguising himself with a baseball cap and sunglasses, he started the Cybertruck and drove cautiously through the streets, scanning for any sign of the duo. His search led him to the outskirts of the city, where gleaming high-rises gave way to dilapidated homes and neglected lots. Finally, he spotted them turning into a narrow alley leading to one of Austin's poorer neighborhoods. Elon hesitated. His sleek, futuristic Cybertruck stood out like a sore thumb in the gritty surroundings. Not wanting to draw attention, he parked a few blocks away and continued on foot. The air grew heavier as he ventured deeper into the neighborhood, the laughter of children playing in the streets contrasting with the visible signs of poverty. Ahead, the girl and the woman entered a rundown apartment building. Elon lingered at a distance, debating his next move. He couldn't shake the feeling that the girl needed help, but he also knew he couldn't just barge in without evidence or a plan. He waited until the sun dipped below the horizon, the streetlights casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, he approached the building. The front door was ajar, revealing a dimly lit hallway that smelled of mildew and stale air. He stepped inside, his heart pounding in his chest. From somewhere deeper within the building came the faint sound of voices. Following the noise, Elon found himself outside a door with peeling paint. Through the thin walls, he could make out snippets of a heated conversation. "I told you not to talk to anyone," the woman's voice hissed. "I didn't say anything," the girl protested, her tone a mix of fear and defiance. Elon's blood ran cold. He had heard enough. Pulling out his phone, he snapped a quick photo of the door number and stepped back into the shadows. His mind raced as he left the building, formulating a plan to uncover the truth. As he reached his car, the weight of the situation settled over him. This was no simple school project. The girl in the red dress was part of something much darker, and Elon Musk, the visionary entrepreneur, was determined to bring it to light. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. He couldn't turn his back on her now. Shadows of truth. The night deepened over Austin, its quiet punctuated by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional bark of a stray dog. Elon Musk sat in his modest sedan, parked a safe distance from the rundown apartment building. His usually methodical mind was racing, piecing together fragments of what he had seen and heard. The girl in the red dress, Kelly, as she had revealed, was not just part of some elaborate school project. There was something much more sinister at play. Elon stared at the photo of the door number on his phone. The peeling paint and rusted metals seemed to embody the despair that clung to the building. He had built his career solving complex problems, but this felt different. Personal, human. A soft buzz from his phone broke his thoughts. It was a message from his assistant, reminding him of his early morning schedule. Product launches, board meetings, strategy sessions, the relentless grind of a global empire. For a moment, he considered driving away, leaving this mystery behind. But something in Kelly's eyes, a mixture of fear and defiance, anchored him. With a sigh, Elon started his car and drove to a nearby motel. He needed rest and a plan. The next morning, he would return with a clearer head. The morning sun filtered through thin curtains, waking Elon from a restless sleep. He quickly showered, changed into casual clothes, and grabbed his laptop. Sitting at the small motel desk, he began his research. First, he looked up the neighborhood. Crime rates were high, poverty even higher. Several reports detailed scams involving children, fake fundraisers, staged performances, and even forced begging. Elon's jaw tightened as he read accounts of vulnerable kids exploited by manipulative adults. Next, he searched for local charities and social services. If Kelly's story about using the money for school was true, there had to be records or someone who could confirm it. Hours passed as he combed through online resources, cross-referencing names and addresses. But the deeper he dug, the murkier the trail became. Then he stumbled upon something that made his pulse quicken. A series of social media posts featuring a girl in a red dress performing on the streets of Austin. The captions praised her talent, with some commenters expressing skepticism about the authenticity of her plight. One video, posted by a user named Streefhurt Austin, showed the woman from the previous day directing Kelly's performance. The comments were a mix of sympathy and suspicion. Elon leaned back, the pieces slowly falling into place. The woman wasn't just exploiting Kelly's situation. She was monetizing it. Views, donations, shares, all translating into profit. He bookmarked the page, his resolve hardening. That afternoon, Elon returned to the neighborhood. This time, he parked several blocks away and approached on foot, his movements deliberate and inconspicuous. The streets bustled with life, but the air was thick with an undercurrent of struggle. He made his way to a small corner store, its windows barred, and its interior dimly lit. Behind the counter stood an older man with a weathered face and kind eyes. Elon bought a bottle of water and struck up a conversation. "Busy area," he remarked casually. The man shrugged. "Always something happening around here." Elon leaned in slightly. "I'm looking for someone. A girl, maybe 12 or 13, wears a red dress. She's usually with a woman. You've seen them." The man's eyes narrowed. "Why are you asking?" "I'm concerned," Elon said honestly. "Something about their situation doesn't feel right." The man hesitated, then sighed. "Yeah, I've seen them. The girl's name is Kelly. Sweet kid, but she's been dealt a rough hand. That woman, she's bad news. Calls herself Linda, but no one really knows her real name. Moves around a lot. Uses kids like Kelly to pull sympathy dollars. Why hasn't anyone reported her?" Elon asked, his frustration mounting. "You think the cops care about this part of town?" The man replied bitterly. "And even if they did, Linda's slippery. By the time anyone looks into it, she's gone. New name, new kid, same scam." Elon thanked the man and left the store, his determination growing. He needed more information, and he knew where to start. The apartment building. Under the guise of a delivery driver, Elon gained access to the building's interior. The hallway was even more decrepit than it had appeared the night before, with cracked tiles and flickering lights. He found the door from his photo and knocked lightly. After a few moments, the door opened a crack, and Kelly's face appeared. Her eyes widened in recognition, but she said nothing. "Kelly, it's me," Elon said softly. "I'm here to help. Can we talk?" She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "She's not here," she whispered. "But if she finds out—" "She won't," Elon assured her. "I just want to understand what's going on. Why do you stay with her?" Kelly stepped back, letting him in. The apartment was small and sparsely furnished, the air heavy with a faint mustiness. She motioned for him to sit, then perched on a worn-out armchair. "I don't have a choice," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "After my mom died, I had nowhere to go. Linda found me and said she'd take care of me. But all she cares about is making money. If I don't do what she says, she threatens to send me away." "Send you where?" Elon asked, leaning forward. Kelly shrugged. "She says she knows people who take kids for work or worse." Elon's stomach turned. He had suspected exploitation, but this was far worse. "Kelly," he said gently, "I can get you out of here, somewhere safe, but I need your help. Do you know where Linda goes when she's not here?" Kelly hesitated, then nodded. "She has a storage unit downtown. Keeps all of her stuff there. Cameras, costumes, everything." Elon's mind raced. The storage unit could be the key to exposing Linda's operation. He thanked Kelly and promised to return soon with a plan. That evening, Elon called one of his trusted security advisors, explaining the situation without revealing Kelly's name. Together, they devised a strategy to investigate the storage unit and gather evidence against Linda. The next morning, Elon stood outside the storage facility, his advisor by his side. They watched as Linda arrived, her car loaded with bags and equipment. She entered her unit, oblivious to their presence. Using a high-powered camera, Elon documented everything. Linda unloading props, counting cash, and reviewing video footage on a laptop. It was enough to prove her intentions and provide leverage for Kelly's freedom. As Linda drove away, Elon turned to his advisor. "We have what we need. Now let's make sure Kelly's safe." The road ahead was uncertain, but Elon was more determined than ever. Kelly's life hung in the balance, and he wouldn't rest until she was free. Into the depths. The early morning air was thick with tension as Elon Musk parked his modest sit-in a block away from the storage facility. It was a stark contrast to the polished conference rooms and gleaming factories he was accustomed to. Today, he wasn't here as the CEO of Tesla or SpaceX. He was simply a man on a mission, driven by a gnawing sense of justice. Beside him sat David, one of his top security advisors. A former investigator with decades of experience, David exuded a calm confidence that helped steady Elon's nerves. "You sure about this?" David asked, his voice low and measured. Elon nodded. "Kelly's counting on us. We need to expose Linda's operation and ensure Kelly's safe. No one else is going to step in." David glanced toward the storage facility, where rows of identical units stretched out like a maze. "We'll need to move carefully. If Linda catches wind of this, she'll disappear before we can gather enough evidence." Elon tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Then we can't afford to make mistakes." The storage facility buzzed with early morning activity as workers loaded and unloaded boxes, oblivious to the drama unfolding around them. Elon and David blended into the background, their casual attire and confident demeanor helping them avoid suspicion. Armed with a small but powerful camera, David led the way as they moved toward Linda's storage unit. "Unit 237, David whispered, nodding toward a row of units tucked away in a corner. "That's the one." Elon's heart raced as they approached. The unit's metal door was closed, but a small gap at the bottom revealed movement inside. Linda was here. They stopped a safe distance away, using a parked van as cover. From their vantage point, they could see Linda sorting through bags and boxes, her movements efficient and practiced. She pulled out various props, worn clothing, signs with handwritten messages, and what appeared to be small bundles of cash. "She's meticulous," David muttered, snapping photos with the camera. "Everything's staged to maximize sympathy." Elon's jaw clenched as he watched Linda review footage on a laptop, her expression smug. The videos were carefully edited, showcasing Kelly's performances in a way that tugged at heartstrings. Every gesture, every tear, was calculated. "She's profiting off of Kelly's pain," Elon said, his voice tinged with anger. "This isn't just exploitation, it's predatory." David nodded. "We've got enough to take to the authorities. But if we're going to get Kelly out safely, we need to act fast." Back in the car, Elon and David reviewed their plan. The evidence they had gathered would be critical, but the immediate priority was ensuring Kelly's safety. "She's vulnerable," Elon said, pacing beside the car. "If Linda suspects anything, she'll retaliate." David pulled out his phone and began making calls. Within minutes, he had arranged for a trusted contact in Child Protective Services to be on standby. "We'll need to coordinate this carefully," David said. "The last thing we want is for Linda to slip away." Elon's mind raced as they drove back to the neighborhood where Kelly lived. He couldn't shake the image of her sitting in that dingy apartment, her spirit dimmed by years of manipulation and fear. She deserved better. When they arrived, the building was quiet. Elon and David climbed the stairs to Kelly's door, their footsteps muffled on the worn carpet. Elon knocked lightly, his heart pounding. After a moment, the door creaked open, and Kelly's face appeared. "It's us," Elon said gently. "Can we come in?" Kelly hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "She's not here," she whispered, "but she'll be back soon." They stepped inside, the dim light casting long shadows on the walls. Kelly sat on the edge of the couch, her hands fidgeting nervously. Elon crouched beside her, his tone soft but urgent. "Kelly, we've found out a lot about Linda," he said. "She's using you to make money, and she's putting you in danger. We want to help you, but we need your trust." Kelly's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know where else to go," she said. "If I leave, she'll find me. She always finds me." "Not this time," David said firmly. "We have people who can protect you, People who will make sure she never hurts you again. Kelly looked at Elon, her expression a mix of hope and fear. You promise? Elon placed a hand on her shoulder. I promise. But we need to move quickly. As they left the apartment, Kelly clutched a small backpack containing her few belongings. Elon led her to the car, his eyes scanning the street for any sign of Linda. David followed close behind, his phone pressed to his ear as he coordinated with their contact. Just as they reached the car, a voice rang out behind them. Where do you think you're going? They turned to see Linda standing at the end of the block, her face twisted with rage. She marched toward them, her movements aggressive. Kelly, get back here, Linda shouted. Kelly froze, her body trembling. Elon stepped in front of her, his stance protective. She's not going anywhere with you, he said, his voice steady but firm. Linda sneered. And who do you think you are? Some do-gooder trying to save the day. You have no idea what you're getting into. David stepped forward, his presence commanding. Walk away, Linda. We have enough evidence to put you behind bars. For a moment, Linda hesitated, her eyes darting between them. Then she laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You think you can stop me? You're nothing. She belongs to me. She belongs to no one, Elon said, his voice rising. She's a child, not a commodity. Linda's expression darkened, but before she could respond, the sound of sirens filled the air. A police car rounded the corner, followed by another vehicle from Child Protective Services. Linda's bravado crumbled as the officers approached. Is there a problem here? One of the officers asked, his hand resting on his holster. David stepped forward, presenting the evidence they had gathered. This woman has been exploiting children for profit. We have proof. Linda's face went pale as the officers turned to her. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us, one of them said. As Linda was escorted away, Kelly clung to Elon's side, her small frame shaking with relief. He knelt beside her, his voice gentle. It's over, Kelly. You're safe now. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to hope. Later that evening, as Kelly settled into a temporary foster home arranged by Child Protective Services, Elon sat in his car, reflecting on the day's events. The fight wasn't over. There would be legal battles and emotional scars to heal. But for now, Kelly was safe, and that was what mattered. The ties that bind. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of a sleek office overlooking downtown Austin. Elon Musk leaned against a desk, arms crossed, his face a mixture of exhaustion and determination. Across from him sat David and a representative from Child Protective Services, a woman named Teresa Albright. Her sharp eyes and firm demeanor hinted at decades of experience in advocacy for vulnerable children. Kelly's immediate safety is our priority, Teresa began, her voice steady. She's currently with a trusted foster family, but this case is far from over. Linda's operation may run deeper than we realize. Elon nodded. We've exposed one piece of the puzzle, but there's more. What's our next move? Teresa opened a folder and laid out a series of documents. Linda's financials are murky at best. The storage unit you documented was just the tip of the iceberg. We believe she's part of a larger network exploiting children across multiple cities. Elon's expression darkened. Then we need to shut it down. Completely. David spoke up, his tone measured. That's easier said than done. These networks are sophisticated, with layers of intermediaries to obscure their operations. It'll take time, resources, and precise coordination to dismantle it. Elon straightened. Then let's give it all of those things. Time, resources, coordination, whatever it takes. I'll fund the investigation, hire the best people, and ensure we're a step ahead. Teresa glanced at him, her lips curving into a small smile. Most people would have walked away after last night. Why are you still here? Elon's gaze softened as he thought of Kelly. Because she deserves a chance. They all do. By midday, a task force was forming. Teresa coordinated with local law enforcement, nonprofits, and investigative journalists. David brought in cybersecurity experts to trace Linda's digital footprint, while Elon used his vast network to enlist additional resources. The energy in the room was electric, driven by a shared sense of purpose. Hours later, a breakthrough came. One of the cybersecurity experts, a young woman named Priya, called everyone's attention to her laptop. "I've been analyzing Linda's financial transactions," she said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "She's been receiving payments from an account linked to a shell company based out of Houston. The company's registered owner is a man named Victor Mendez, a known associate of trafficking rings in the region." David leaned over her shoulder, studying the screen. "If we can connect Linda to Victor, we'll have a direct link to the larger network." Priya nodded. "I've also found encrypted messages between Linda and Victor. They discuss meeting points, payment schedules, and shipments." Her voice faltered on the last word, the weight of its implications settling over the room. Elon's jaw tightened. "Can we decrypt those messages?" "I'm working on it," Priya said, "but it'll take time." "Then let's make sure we use every second wisely," Elon said, his resolve unwavering. "We need to build an airtight case." As the day turned to night, the task force worked tirelessly. Elon stayed in the thick of it, reviewing files, coordinating strategies, and lending his expertise wherever needed. It was a far cry from his usual work of designing rockets and electric cars, but he approached it with the same intensity. Around midnight, Priya finally cracked the encryption. The room fell silent as she pulled up the decrypted messages. They painted a grim picture, detailed logistics for moving children between cities, discussions of profits, and instructions for avoiding detection. "This is enough to launch a raid," Teresa said, her voice firm. "We can't wait any longer." David nodded. "Agreed. I'll contact law enforcement and get the ball rolling." Elon's eyes remained fixed on the screen. "And Kelly, what happens to her during all of this?" Teresa placed a hand on his arm. "She'll be protected. The foster family is prepared for anything. Right now, she's safe." Elon nodded, though his concern for Kelly's well-being lingered. "Let's finish this," he said quietly. The next morning, a coordinated operation unfolded. SWAT teams and law enforcement units raided multiple locations, including Linda's storage unit, Victor's properties in Houston, and several other identified hotspots. The task force monitored the raids in real time from a secure command center. Elon stood at the center of the room, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Each update brought a mix of relief and frustration. Several suspects were apprehended and evidence was seized, but Victor remained elusive. "He slipped through the cracks," David reported grimly. "But we'll get him. It's only a matter of time." Despite the setback, the operation was hailed as a success. Dozens of children were rescued, and a significant portion of the network was dismantled. Teresa approached Elon, a rare smile on her face. "We couldn't have done this without you," she said. Elon shook his head. "This was a team effort, and it's not over yet." Later that evening, Elon visited Kelly at her foster home. She greeted him with a tentative smile, her small frame dwarfed by the oversized hoodie she wore. They sat on the porch, the night air cool and quiet. "How are you holding up?" Elon asked. Kelly shrugged. "Better, I guess. It's weird being here. Safe. I'm not used to it." Elon nodded, his heart heavy. "It'll take time, but you're not alone anymore." Kelly looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and lingering fear. "What happens now?" "Now," Elon said, "we make sure this never happens to you or anyone else again, and we make sure you get the future you deserve." She smiled, a small but genuine expression of hope. For the first time, she began to believe that brighter days lay ahead. As Elon drove away, he felt a profound sense of purpose. This wasn't just about Kelly anymore. It was about all the children like her, trapped in the shadows, waiting for someone to bring them into the light. And Elon Musk, with all his resources and resolve, was determined to do just that. The chase for justice. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. While the raids had successfully disrupted part of the trafficking network, Victor Mendez remained a ghost, a specter lurking just out of reach. For Elon Musk and the task force, the operation was far from over. Each day brought new leads, new obstacles, and an ever-deepening sense of urgency. Elon had shifted much of his focus from his companies to the ongoing investigation. At Tesla and SpaceX, his trusted teams handled day-to-day operations, but his thoughts often drifted to Kelly and the countless other children trapped in similar situations. He worked alongside David, Teresa, and Priya, pouring resources into uncovering Victor's whereabouts. One afternoon, Priya burst into the task force's makeshift headquarters, her face alight with discovery. "We found him," she announced, dropping a stack of printed documents onto the table. David leaned over, scanning the papers. "Where?" "Mexico," Priya replied. "Victor's been hiding out at a villa near the border. He's using it as a base of operations. Local contacts have confirmed he's still running the network from there." Teresa frowned. "Crossing international lines complicates things. We'll need to coordinate with Mexican authorities and Interpol." Elon's expression hardened. "Then let's do it. Whatever it takes." The following days were consumed by delicate negotiations. Teresa reached out to contacts within international law enforcement, while David worked with security experts to develop a plan for apprehending Victor without tipping him off. Elon's influence proved invaluable, opening doors and cutting through red tape that would have otherwise slowed progress. As the operation took shape, Elon found himself grappling with an unexpected challenge: patience. Used to controlling every variable, he had to rely on others to handle critical pieces of the puzzle. It was a humbling experience, but one he embraced for the sake of the mission. Finally, the task force received word. The operation was a go. A joint team of U.S. and Mexican law enforcement would raid Victor's villa at dawn. The goal was clear: capture Victor and dismantle the remaining network. The night before the raid, Elon couldn't sleep. He paced the length of his hotel room, his mind racing with possibilities. What if Victor escaped again? What if the operation failed? The stakes were higher than ever, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. Just after midnight, his phone buzzed. It was Kelly. "Hi, Mr. Musk," she said softly. "Teresa told me you're still working on this. I wanted to say thank you." Elon's heart softened at her words. "You don't need to thank me, Kelly. This is what's right. And we're going to make sure Victor can never hurt anyone again." "Do you think they'll catch him?" she asked, her voice tinged with fear. "I do," Elon said firmly. "We have a good team, and we're ready." Kelly was quiet for a moment. I've been having bad dreams," she admitted. "About Linda. About Victor. What if they come back for me?" Elon sat down, his voice steady. "That's not going to happen. You're safe now, Kelly, and I'll make sure it stays that way. You have my word." Her reply was a whisper. "Okay." As the call ended, Elon felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about justice. It was about giving Kelly and others like her a chance to heal, to reclaim their lives. The morning of the raid dawned clear and cool. At the command center, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Live feeds from drones and ground teams provided real-time updates as the joint task force surrounded Victor's villa. Elon, David, and Teresa watched intently, their eyes glued to the monitors. "We've got movement," the voice crackled over the comms. "Multiple individuals inside the villa. Looks like Victor's here." David nodded. "No surprises. Let's move." The raid unfolded with precision. Teams breached the villa's gates, their movements coordinated and efficient. Resistance was minimal. Most of Victor's associates surrendered without a fight. Within minutes, the man himself was apprehended, his attempts to flee thwarted by a well-placed barricade. As the news came through, cheers erupted in the command center. Teresa exhaled a long breath, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. "We got him," she said, her voice filled with relief. Elon allowed himself a small smile. "It's a start. Now we make sure he answers for what he's done." The days following Victor's capture were a whirlwind of activity. Statements were taken, evidence catalogued, and plans made to bring him to trial. Elon's involvement didn't waver. He attended meetings, coordinated with legal teams, and continued to advocate for the children rescued during the raids. For Kelly, the news of Victor's capture was a turning point. When Elon visited her at the foster home, she greeted him with a smile that was brighter, more confident. "He's really gone?" she asked, her eyes searching his face. "He's in custody," Elon confirmed. "He'll never hurt anyone again." Kelly nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's weird. I feel lighter, like I can breathe again." "That's how it should be," Elon said gently. "You're free now, Kelly. Free to dream, to grow, to live." She looked at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for everything." Elon smiled. "You don't have to thank me. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Promise me you'll chase your dreams, whatever they are." Kelly's smile widened. "I promise." As Elon drove away that evening, he reflected on the journey so far. The fight against exploitation wasn't over, but significant progress had been made. Victor's network was in shambles, and dozens of children had been saved. For Elon, it was a reminder of the power of determination and the importance of using one's resources for good. The road ahead was still long, but he was ready for the challenge. Because for children like Kelly, the chance to live without fear was worth every effort. A new horizon. The courtroom was a stark departure from the high-tech environments Elon Musk typically inhabited. Yet, as he sat quietly in the gallery, observing the proceedings, he felt more invested than he had in years. The trial of Victor Mendez had finally begun, and the evidence gathered by the task force painted a chilling picture of his operations. Every detail, from financial records to encrypted messages to survivor testimonies, was meticulously presented, leaving little room for doubt about Victor's guilt. Kelly's foster family sat nearby, offering her quiet support as she waited for her turn to testify. Though nervous, she displayed a quiet courage that inspired everyone around her, including Elon. Her story would be pivotal, not just for the trial but for her own journey toward healing. When Kelly took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. She clutched a small charm bracelet in her hand, a gift from her foster parents meant to give her strength. As she began to speak, her voice wavered but grew steadier with each word. "I didn't know what Linda was doing at first," she said. "She told me I was helping people, that the money we collected would go to charity. But it didn't take long to see that wasn't true. She kept everything." Kelly recounted her experiences with painful clarity, describing how Linda and Victor had manipulated and exploited her. Her testimony was heartbreaking yet powerful, painting a vivid picture of the harm caused by their actions. "I'm here because I don't want this to happen to anyone else," she concluded, her gaze steady despite the tears in her eyes. "No one deserves to feel like they're nothing, like they don't matter." When she stepped down from the stand, the courtroom erupted in murmurs of support. Elon met her gaze as she returned to her seat, offering her a reassuring nod. She had done something extraordinary, and he couldn't have been prouder. The trial lasted several weeks, but the outcome was clear. Victor was convicted on multiple counts of human trafficking, fraud, and child exploitation. His sentencing brought a measure of closure to the survivors, though the scars of their experiences would take longer to heal. For Elon, the trial's conclusion marked the beginning of a new chapter. The fight against trafficking had opened his eyes to a world he had previously overlooked, and he was determined to make a lasting impact. With the support of Teresa, David, and Priya, he began laying the groundwork for a new foundation aimed at combating exploitation and supporting survivors. Months later, the foundation's launch event brought together advocates, survivors, and community leaders. Kelly was among the speakers, her confidence blossoming as she shared her story with a packed audience. "I used to think my life would never get better," she said, her voice clear and steady. "But people like Mr. Musk and everyone here showed me that there's hope, that we can make things better for others who are still trapped. And that's what I want to do now. Help others the way I was helped." The crowd erupted in applause, their energy a testament to the power of resilience and community. Elon watched from the side, his heart swelling with pride. Kelly had come so far, and her journey was just beginning. Later that evening, Elon found Kelly standing by a large window overlooking the city. She seemed lost in thought, her gaze fixed on the twinkling lights below. "Big night," he said, joining her. She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "Yeah, it still feels unreal sometimes, like all of this is a dream." "It's not a dream," Elon said. "You made it happen. You chose to keep going, to fight for something better. That's real." Kelly turned to him, her expression serious. "Do you ever feel like you're not doing enough? Like no matter how much you try, it's never enough?" Elon considered her question, his gaze thoughtful. "All the time. But I've learned that it's not about doing everything. It's about doing what you can, where you are, with what you have. And when you do that, it adds up. It makes a difference." She nodded slowly, as if absorbing his words. "I want to make a difference too. I don't know how yet, but I want to try." "You already have," Elon said. "And you will again, one step at a time." As the event wound down, Elon reflected on the journey that had brought them all here. What had started as a chance encounter with a girl in a red dress had transformed into a mission that changed countless lives. It wasn't the path he had expected, but it was one he wouldn't trade for anything. The future was uncertain, but it was also bright. With people like Kelly leading the way, there was hope for a world where no one had to live in fear or darkness. And Elon Musk, with his boundless drive and unwavering belief in humanity's potential, was ready to keep fighting for that future.